Well, let's continue our focus on the 16 days of activism against violence of women and children. 3/4 of murdered children under the age of 4 are killed in the context of abuse by a caregiver at home. To explore why so many children are abused at home, sometimes to the point of death, we're joined this morning by Nomalanga Ngwenya. She's from Agisanang Domestic Abuse Prevention and Training. Nomalanga, good morning.
Good
and I
morning.
wish we were talking about something else, but this is indeed the reality we're living in. And
yes.
it's quite shocking, and it's a subject we don't often talk about, is children and caregivers. Tell us what is happening in South African households with our kids.
Well, in South African households, a lot of abuse is happening towards children. There is so much focus and a lot of programs that are focused on women, and we are failing to really recognize that children are going through a lot of abuse and they're carrying a lot of burden in the households. For example, we have a lot of child-headed households in Alexandra, where you find a child having to go to school and having to take care of their siblings because they are orphaned or their mothers left them somewhere in a shack in Alexandra. And you also find out that there are cases of incest that are going on in the households. Besides the child being abused physically, there's also sexual abuse that is happening in the family, where the family will hide it for a long time, sometimes to a point where it results to pregnancy of the child. And with our programs as Agisanang Domestic Abuse Prevention and Training, we find these cases because we work in schools. We have social workers based in the schools where children are referred to the social worker, and through those counseling sessions we then find out that there's a lot of incest and abuse happening on those children in the schools, and some of them to a point where they get impregnated by the stepfather or the father.
So it's yes, that's the case where it sometimes is a direct family member,
Yes.
it's a relative, a step-parent, but there are also people that we trust and we hire to take care of our children. What are we seeing happening there?
Well, we've seen a lot of videos on social media on families that didn't trust the caregivers of the children, and then they put the nanny cams, and you'll see them really abusing the child. But you will never know what is happening until you have such you go through an extent where you put on a nanny cam, or you have a child that can speak out and say, you know what, mommy, auntie does this to me every day. You know what, mommy, auntie is starving me every day. And that is the only way to find out, when the children come out and speak out, because 16 days of activism this year encourages reporting, encourages speaking out, encourages people to listen and people to actually support the person that is speaking out. And a lot of children really do carry a lot in them, and they can speak out, except that we as adults don't want to listen to them.
And that's my next question, is
Yes.
why don't we believe our children? Why don't we want to listen? Whether it's a family member, whether it's the nanny, whether it's the gogo, whoever is at home. Why is it that we choose not to listen to our children?
Well, in most backgrounds, we have been raised in a manner where older people or adults are the ones who get to say something and it goes, and children are children. So children don't know anything. Children are young. Children don't have experience of life. And even when they speak, no one listens to them because they are children. So the age difference is a big challenge when it comes to listening to children. But also there is ignorance that parents have towards their children. Some of them, they get told by their children and they know it's happening, yet they keep supporting the perpetrator because of maybe they are ashamed what's going to happen to the family, and they end up making the person pay damages when they have done something to their child. But we as Agisanang Domestic Abuse Prevention and Training, we actually work in schools.
Okay, I was just going to ask you, where do you fit into all of this, and how do you help?
We work in schools where we work with learners and educate them on their rights as children. And when they have learnt about that, then they become ambassadors in the schools. We work with the Department of Education with the GEMS and BEMS movement, which is the Girls and Boys Empowerment movement, where we educate them on specific topics. And after that, we actually teach them on how they can, or guide them on how they can advocate or do advocacy in their schools and in their communities. And we actually encourage a lot of child-led campaigns, because we as adults and organizations, we are not based in the schools most of the times, and the challenges are faced by the children, and children do have voices, and they are very intelligent. They just need guidance, and they need the content that they need in order to address their issues.
And this must be quite tricky as well, Nomalanga, because sometimes this is happening at school.
Yes.
And do you find that their kids are, I mean, they're even more vulnerable and they're even more afraid to speak out because that's your teacher? I mean, that's your somebody in the school.
We try as much as possible to work with the Department of Education and educators. So when we work in the schools, we do a holistic approach where we work with the educators as well as the support staff, the ground staff, the security, because everyone is involved and in taking care of the child. So we really do encourage school safety by educating everyone, but we work on the codes of conduct. Schools have got codes of conduct, and what we do is that we work with the learners, teach them about it, give them the different instruments on school safety, and have them really look into their code of conduct and try and input and amend those codes of conduct, which they will then present to the school management. And luckily, if they are really into it and they've bought into the idea, they then amend it according to the issues, because the issues change every time, and we cannot stick to the same code of conduct.
And you're happy to go to any school and chat and help?
Definitely.
They can get a hold of
Definitely.
you and you'll be able to do it.
Yes,
Obviously in the new year now.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. I applaud the work you do.
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.
Somebody has to look out for the children. Nomalanga Ngwenya from Agisanang Domestic Abuse Prevention and Training. She and her team do just that.